But first, the more that's discovered about those Islamic State women, some call them ISIS brides, I call them co-conspirators, the worse it looks for the Albanese government, the worse it looks for the Immigration Minister Tony Burke, and the worse it looks for the Prime Minister. Today, Anthony Albanese was left lamely repeating his previous lines that the government is not involved in repatriating these terrorist accomplices, all the while admitting that the government has been issuing them with passports because the Prime Minister says that's the law. Here he is.
People are having an implementation of Australian law is what is happening. We're providing no assistance to these people and won't provide any assistance to these people, but we won't breach Australian law.
Now, there's only one way to describe those words from the Prime Minister: lies. Absolute BS. And it says to me that he doesn't even know his own laws, or if he does, he's unwilling to enforce them. Here is Section 14 of the Australian Passports Act 2005. It is a Commonwealth piece of legislation, and it is and provides the laws that govern the issuance, the administration and the cancellation of Australian passports. It's this Act that establishes that Australian citizens have a right to a passport, but crucially, at the same time, empowering the Minister to refuse or cancel such passports and to impose strict security measures. So the laws to grant the passport, but also the laws to take a passport away, as well as the laws to refuse one outright. And yet, if you listen to the Prime Minister, he wants you to think his hands are tied, that anyone wanting an Australian passport must be given one. So what could the Prime Minister be doing now to stop these Islamic State women returning to Australia under existing laws? Section 14, have a look. Here it is, of the Australian Passports Act. It says, if a competent authority, and that's basically a delegate of the Minister, suspects on reasonable grounds that the person to whom a passport might otherwise be issued, quote, might prejudice the security of Australia, the competent authority may make a refusal. So let's spell that out. The government is perfectly entitled to refuse to issue a passport to people who might be a security risk. And it has the laws now, right now, tonight, to do this. Meaning the reason these jihadi women are getting a passport to come to Australia is because the Albanese government wants them to have one. It is not that they can't stop them, they can. They have the laws now, but clearly not the political will. And how could these women not be a security risk under that Act, given they knowingly left Australia and joined the listed Islamic State terror group? They broke the law to do it, let's not forget that at the time. They married hardened terrorists, they had children to hardened terrorists to breed the terrorists of the future, and have now spent years and years in camps, mostly populated by hardened terrorists. So, of course, the government could refuse to issue them passports. I've just outlined the case against these women. But clearly, as far as Labor's concerned, the Muslim lobby in seats like Tony Burke's in Sydney holds more sway over the Albanese government than the majority view of Australians. Now, we've known for some days that the great political ally of Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke is the prominent Sydney GP, Dr Jamal Rifi, and he has been in Syria trying to repatriate these terrorist accomplices. Today we learned via the Daily Telegraph newspaper that it was not just Dr Rifi there helping to get these Islamic State women back to Australia. There was, on the basis of what's in the paper, encrypted messages. A government delegate, it says, in the camp working with these ISIS women and doing DNA testing before handing over Australian passports. Indeed, the women's messages, translated from Arabic into English, reportedly say, and I quote, "The Australian government has concluded DNA tests for the sisters and children, issued Australian passports for them, and sent a delegation to accompany the families back to Australia." So the government that's supposedly not involved at all in any of this has not just had a key Labor political ally, Dr. Riffy, over there. According to these messages, has actually sent a delegation to test the women and the children, to issue them passports and to escort them back to Australia. Now, plainly, the government's up to their eyeballs in all of this. The Telegraph quotes a high-level security source, presumably someone who knows all about this delegation, saying, quote, the government has been quietly making these repatriation plans for months. Now, these claims in the Telegraph today are explosive. And since the story broke today, Tony Burke has hidden from the media. And the Prime Minister, well, he's only held highly stage-managed events and avoided questions. Clearly, full and frank answers must now be given about this delegation. How big was it, or is it? Who is in it? Are we talking about officials, paid contractors, or, as has been rumoured to me when I was in Canberra, individuals with a Special Forces connection? So current or former Australian soldiers. And here's the question almost every Australian is asking tonight. How can a government that says it takes the safety and security of Australians seriously, just 2 months on from the worst terror atrocity ever committed in this country, allegedly inspired by Islamic State, connive to bring back Islamic State accomplices into Australia? Now, if you don't want terrorism in Australia, you don't import it. You don't bring in people who actively support it and maybe even participated in terrorism. Now, honestly, this is an outrage. This is an absolute outrage. Sure, these people are female and some are minors. But does anyone think that women and adolescents can't be terrorists? Wake up. You know they can. I know they can. Again, here is former Federal Police counter-terrorism expert David Craig.
It's my opinion that every single one of these ISIS brides is either fully radicalised or subservient to those that are. That's the only way you could end up in trying to be part of an Islamic caliphate and leave a peaceful country to go and do so. Now, if they're either of those two, they are an unacceptable risk.
And yet tonight we know the Albanese government actively assisting potential terrorists to enter this country. Yes, as I said, it is an outrage. But I also think this is getting close to betraying our country. Some would even say it is treasonous. There'd hardly be a person tonight not shaking their head angrily at the Prime Minister for letting the demands of terrorist sympathisers in Syria trump the rights of decent Australians to be safe in our own country.